Marvel released the action comic trailer for its new X event, The Trial of Magneto, which hits store shelves in August. The trial happens as the fallout from the Hellfire Gala, which ended with the discovery of the Scarlet Witch's dead body at the end of X-Factor number 10. According to this trailer, X-Factor is spending some time investigating her death, and apparently all signs will point to Magneto as the murderer. The trailer also indicates that Magneto might not have been the one to have actually done the deed, so then it begs the question, if Magneto didn't kill Wanda, then who did? In this video, I've compiled a short list of likely suspects for the murder, and I've given my reasons as to why they may have been motivated to kill Wanda. When I look at Wanda's dead body, it seems to me as though she might have been choked to death. So the first thing I did was to look at who might be some famous chokers in the X universe to see if I could determine possible suspects via the MO. Colossus has been known to grab a neck or two in his time, and Sanyaka has that infamous scene with the nurse in the hospital and his bioelectric whip, which is such a gross scene. But neither of these two really have like a grudge against Wanda that I'm aware of, so I don't think we can go the choking route for this one. But if we base the suspect list on personal reasons, then there are more than a few that come to mind. So without further ado, here is my list of possible suspects in the murder of the Scarlet Witch. Magneto. Magneto is at the forefront of this investigation and is being pegged as the #1 prime suspect. Based on the trailer that Marvel released, how I suspect this comes about is that Rachel uses her chrono skimming and psychically sees that Magneto is either the one who's with Wanda or maybe who attacks Wanda, and perhaps even Daken smells Magneto's scent on Wanda's corpse. That scent could probably just be from when Magneto and Wanda hugged earlier in the evening, but this evidence would be damning enough for the Quiet Council to want to put Mags on trial. If Magneto did kill Wanda, then I purport that it will be in favor of having her resurrected as a mutant, which I predict might be a favor that Wanda asks of Magneto herself. Maybe she thinks that being a mutant will help her in her quest for absolution from the mutant community. That feels like a bit of species privilege if you ask me, but it would be an interesting story development for sure, and a great way to bring Wanda back into mutantdom, which I know a lot of fans are missing her. The only hitch about this, though, is that since Wanda technically isn't a mutant currently, would there even be a backup in Cerebro to resurrect her from? I mean, I'm guessing not, unless Xavier has backups from whenever they thought Scarlet Witch was a mutant, or unless he's been secretly backing up humans too, or maybe he backed up everybody who came through a gate for the Hellfire Gala just in case this happened. Regardless, what I predict to happen if this is the case is that Magneto will cut a deal with Sinister, who probably does have some Scarlet Witch DNA, and will secretly commission the Five to resurrect her, this time with some mutant splicing into her double helix. It's a perversion of the resurrection protocols for sure to bring back a human as a mutant, but I think it would be great for plot development and something that is definitely worthy of putting Magneto on trial for. Mystique. My second prime suspect for this crime is Mystique. The way the trailer was cut, it would have you believe that Mystique is actually pulling some strings here and that she's framing Magneto to take the fall for something that she has done herself. If Rachel does do some chrono skimming and she does see Magneto kill Wanda, there's no one to say that it couldn't just be Mystique using her shape-shifting abilities to masquerade as Magneto. In my opinion, Mystique is almost like the obvious answer here, as this trial event is meant to be like a prelude to her Inferno event, and so it would make sense that she's the one steering the helm. In terms of her motivation for wanting to kill Wanda, I think it's nothing short of a revenge against Magneto and Xavier for how dirty they've been treating her. They've been dangling Destiny's resurrection in front of her for a while now without ever paying up with it, and so now Mystique wants to let Magneto know what it feels like to have the person you love most taken from you without the chance of them ever being brought back, as Mystique wouldn't anticipate the Scarlet Witch being resurrected since she is a human. It's very likely that Magneto and Wanda's embrace at the end of the Hellfire Gala might not have been Magneto and Wanda at all, but it could have been Mystique impersonating him from the get-go. She might have been the one to have sent Wanda the invitation to the gala, as Magneto hasn't really been too forthcoming with Wanda since he moved to Krakoa. He hasn't been speaking ill of her per se, but he kind of avoids her when she's brought up as a topic, and in Planet-Size X-Men, he even says that their world has no more need for pretenders when they talk about Franklin Richards. If Mystique is framing Magneto, then I think that Xavier will be next on her list, and that feels like all the kindling Mystique will need to finally start her inferno. Exodus. Exodus is my third candidate for Wanda's murder. He really hasn't done a whole lot since he's been on Krakoa except preach about different ideals, and one of the things he's been actively preaching about has been Wanda, aka the Pretender. He's been seen multiple times rearing the next generation of mutants on horror stories around the campfire about the dreaded Scarlet Witch and how she decimated the mutant population. It's very obvious that he still holds a grudge against Wanda for what she did, and for Exodus, his belief system is usually reason enough to motivate him to do anything at all, and in this case, he might have seen her death as the best thing to do here. Exodus was one of the psychics who was summoned to fight off Wanda's reanimated Genoshan zombie mutants from the Empire storyline, but I don't know for sure if it was revealed to him that Wanda was behind that. If he somehow did learn about Wanda's involvement, then I could see that being more fuel to the fire in his crusade against her. That said, I do have a hard time believing that he'd break any of the Krakoan laws unless he had a good reason to do it. He's kind of been a neutral party for the most part on the Quiet Council, even though he's technically one of the villains. I think that he really does believe in Krakoa as a nation and as a society, so him breaking the murder no man law by murdering Wanda means that he'd have to have seen it as being some sort of just desserts / comeuppance / retaliation for what she did on M-Day. Exodus as a character has always been about being devout to beliefs and philosophy and stuff, and even though historically he's been more of a follower, his later depictions of him made him more of a leader with independent thought, and so the only thing that could really get him to break the laws here of Krakoa would be if he believed that his beliefs were more correct than the actual laws, which might very well be the case. Fabian Cortez. Cortez is another possible suspect, although I don't think it's too likely that he did it. He has been fighting with the council lately, specifically about the murder no man law. It seems to be number one on his agenda to get that changed for some reason, although the council has been unrelenting in their dismissal of his appeals. In fact, Magneto really embarrassed Cortez recently by making him appear immediately after his resurrection while he was still naked, and even though it felt as though Magneto was doing this in support of Cortez's cause, it was the exact opposite, and Magneto was the one who shot him down and shut him up. Cortez's ego doesn't take too kindly to being bruised, and so murdering Wanda could be a way for Cortez to get back at Magneto for that embarrassment. And it could also be a way for Cortez to circumspect the murder no man law. Is Wanda technically human even though she was thought to be mutant for a long time? I'm sure the Quiet Council and everybody else would think yes, but this could be some way of Cortez appealing for that law to be changed. I don't know. I don't think that Cortez being a suspect is really the strongest case, but her murder could end up just being means to forward his cause, and so that's why I put him on this list. Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom and the Scarlet Witch have had a very tumultuous relationship, especially over the past decade. He was retconned into having a hand in her breakdown during the Avengers Disassembled and House of M stuff, which I think was meant to sort of absolve Wanda of her sin, but that's been largely ignored by most of the mutant population. Dr. Doom is a potential suspect here because he was at the Hellfire Gala and has been shown to still be hanging around Krakoa even after all of the festivities have ended, which is when the murder took place. I can't really see Dr. Doom having a hand in Scarlet Witch's death here, unless her death would give him something in return, and in this instance, I think it might have been something political. He is one of the nation leaders who was kind of outraged to learn that the X-Men terraformed Mars, and so by killing Wanda, he might hope to keep the mutants, busy and distracted maybe, and have their state in some sort of uproar while he tries to seek favor with the mutants of Arakko and perhaps even tries to become their #1 political ally, replacing Krakoa. I admit that's kind of a weak theory, but I don't see why else Doctor Doom is being marketed as having stuck around post-Gala unless there's some sort of connection here to Wanda's death. Rogue. I admittedly have a hard time believing Rogue would commit this murder. The only reason I'm putting her on this list is because of the time that she spent hating Wanda on the Avengers Unity Squad. She was constantly giving Wanda sass over M-Day, and she despised working with her so much that they came to blows more than once, to a point where it looked like Rogue did murder Wanda. That obviously didn't take, but if Rogue killed Wanda once for fear of what she might do, who's to say that she wouldn't do it again? Uncanny Avengers was really great writing, and it was some of the best development work I've seen with Rogue in recent years, so if you haven't read it, then you've got to check it out. The Rogue and Wanda feud was really the backbone of that series for me, and even though I think they sort of made up at the end of it, I think it would be crazy if Rogue just snapped and decided to let Wanda have it at the Gala. Random Depowered Mutant. My final theory is that none of the usual suspects killed Wanda, and that it will just end up being a random depowered mutant who did it. There are tons of characters out there who could have a grudge over what happened to them on M-Day, and they could have seen her being at the Gala as a perfect time to get some revenge. People like Fantasia, who went crazy after M-Day and ended up locked in a S.W.O.R.D prison cell, or Blob, who was super suicidal when he lost his powers, or the Hell's Bells, who felt inadequate and as though they couldn't even belong with their own community anymore. There's probably no shortage of people who still harbor a grudge against her. All that said, most of these mutants are repowered now, so they might not care anymore, but there are still lots of emotional scars inside of them as to what happened, and with Onslaught running around unchecked on Krakoa, seeing Wanda may just trigger some violent energy in them and cause them to lash out and murder her. So that's my list of suspects. Some are probably more obvious than others, and I'm super curious to see how Marvel's gonna spin this. Please comment and let me know what your suspect list looks like. I might have missed some glaringly obvious people here, so please let me know what you think is going to happen. If you liked this video, please feel free to browse around my channel for more solicit speculations like this one. I do reviews and rankings and ruminations on all kinds of X content, so there is bound to be something you'll enjoy. You can also follow me on social media for a random assortment of daily X panels with funny captions, or at least I think they're funny. Thanks again for stopping by today, and be sure to come back soon for more great X-Mentations.